What would happen if a mysterious meteor strikes in your Pokemon region? Well, in Pokemon Daybreak, you get called up by the local professor in order to go and investigate it. And there's a lot more behind this meteor than meets the eye. And today we're going to uncover every sinister thing behind it. Pokemon Daybreak was made by Mizzy and their amazing team, and the entire new storyline sits itself in the custom region called Armira, which is home to a whole new bunch of regional Pokemon, including some fan favorites like Greninja and Sceptile. But that isn't all, there's also new custom Mega Evolutions and something new called Dualions. This is a process where they combine two evolutions together to create a whole new one. So if you're a fan of the evolutions, you're going to have a field day with all the possible outcomes. There's a lot more for us to discover and talk about, but let's do that while we get through Daybreak. The story starts off in your home region of Kanto, more specifically Saffron City. You and your big brother Alex are about to get your starter Pokemon, but when you go downstairs, your mom tells you he's already gone off to the lab. So you make your way over there yourself, but unfortunately Professor Oak has already given away all the starter Pokemon, and the last one was given to your brother, who promises you that he will get you your starter Pokemon by capturing it in the wild. So you travel with him to one of the surrounding routes where he captures your first Pokemon, Eevee. And to thank all the support from the members and patrons, I'll be naming every single Pokemon I use after them. But don't worry, you can also support me without spending any money by just clicking that subscribe button if you haven't done that already. After this, we head back home to our mom, who says she's gonna miss us so much because we'll be going on our Pokemon journeys. But we won't be seeing much of our brother anymore as he'll be staying in Kanto. We got an offer from Professor Oak to help out a neighboring professor in Armira. But before we can leave, we need to pick up an evolutionary item in Saffron City. By searching around a bit, you'll be able to evolve your Eevee into any form you'd like, but I picked Espeon. Why, you may ask? Well, cause psychic types are pretty overpowered. But let me know in the comments down below what your favorite evolution is. And please don't let me bring up the Vaporeon meme again. After a good night's sleep, my mom sends me off on a plane to Armira with $2,000 and 5 Pokeballs. After a couple of days, we get a call from Professor Blake to meet me at a meteor crash site so we can investigate it. And because I'm eager to explore this new region, I immediately head out of Raiden Town and meet up with Professor Blake not long after. But unfortunately, there is a group of very unfriendly people that are putting our investigation on hold. But we do have the first gym leader, Flora, by our side to try and fight them off. While she's distracting 2 of them, I head into the crater to take care of the rest. Here we learn that they're members of Squad Zero, the evil team of Armira. We're not sure what they're after yet, but we do make a very good first impression, taking both of them down with much ease. We were too late, however, as they already got what they came for and then flee the scene. Flora was also impressed with our battling skills and says that we need to come and challenge her in the upcoming town so we can start our Pokemon League journey. After this, Blake hands me an extractor which we use to get some ore from the meteorite. We then head back to his lab to deliver it to him so we can start investigating. Unfortunately, his machines don't seem to be able to analyze it, which means the meteor is made up of things we have never discovered yet. We also find out that this meteorite came out of nowhere very mysteriously, as not a single space research facility was able to predict it crashing into Earth. So Blake thinks Squad Zero has something to do with it and asks us to investigate further on them. This is where the game gives you some dialogue options, and depending on which one you choose, your karma will go up or down. There's a lot of these spread through the entire campaign, and it actually affects the story in some minor situations, so this definitely made me think about my answers a bit more. Blake says that we need to get stronger, and by doing that, he does encourage that we take on the gym challenge. But that is not the only mission we'll be going on. We also need to go to Edgeton, where we need to look for someone called Dante, an associate of the professor that will help us out throughout this entire journey. And in order to get me started, he also hands me the Pokénav, which I can use to see which Pokemon are on which routes, and some more Pokeballs so we can start capturing those juicy regional forms. So as I'm about to head out, we run into 2 trainers fighting with their Electrike and Absol. Their names are Eliza and Gabriel, and they just started their Pokemon journeys as well. They tell me that we should join them on their journey so we can all be friends together, but I prefer being rivals. But regardless of that, be sure to see a lot more of these 2. We follow in their footsteps and eventually reach Edgeton Town. And of course, we run into the 2 of them yet again. Eliza was taking some pictures on Tress Road, while Gabriel was training up his Electrike and wants to test out his strength. And that's when we have our first rival battle against him, and yes, we did in fact destroy him with my Espeon's confusion. With the battle over, they're off again to get even stronger, and we have free reign to explore further. So I moved on to Triss Road, where I captured a Zorua and traded it away for a Helioptile in the local Pokemon Center. We also captured a Trico and then moved on to Edgeton Woods to meet up with the professor's associate, Dante. He was admiring the statue dedicated to the legend of the Mire King Swampert, and just that statue alone gives this game bonus points for me. After explaining what we need from Dante, he tells me that he can do it on his own and starts acting all cocky. So I put him in his place immediately by one-shotting Bagon and Tyrogue with confusions. Just like any mature human being, he says we just got lucky, and if we're really strong, we should take on this gym and beat it first try. He also hands me the HM for cut and then moves on to Maroon Town. There was only one more thing for me to do now, so I headed over to the gym, but unfortunately, a very tough trainer just walked out of it and was looking for another challenge. His name is Brendan, former champion of the Hoenn region, looking for a new challenge here in Armira. So let's test this kid out and see how strong he really is. He has the 3 Hoenn starters, Trico, Torchic, and Mudkip, and just like everything else so far, we bomb all 3 of them with confusions from Espeon, winning the battle easily and giving us access to the next gym. Flora specializes in grass types and starts off with a Snover, so I do some okay cheap damage with Helioptile and Trico before I have to bring out the big bomb again, and just like I said, all we need is confusion. We take out Snover, Cacnea, and Roserade to come out on top and win the Flower Badge. This grants us the ability to cut down trees, which lets us reach a cave where we find our very first regional Pokemon, Roggenrola. This guy had a measly 5% encounter rate, so it took me quite a while until we found it, but you bet that this ground ghost type is going to make our team a lot stronger. I also ended up helping out a kid that lost his Great Ball behind a cut tree, so we gave it back to him, and shortly after we reached Maroon Town, where Dante needed my help fighting some grunts. So we teamed up with him in a double battle and showed them not to mess with us. Once the grunts have been scared off, Dante actually gives me a compliment saying that I'm not half bad, but we're never going to be better than him because he has his own aspirations of becoming champion. He then leaves to take on the next gym while we raid somebody's garden and gain some bad karma. We steal all of their berries as well as their Rock Smash HM and run out to see Rocco, the local gym leader, talking to a random woman. And she has this strong aura about her, so we're immediately intrigued about who she is. However, before we found out, she ended up leaving and Gabriel and Eliza challenged Rocco to a battle at his gym. But he wasn't willing to accept until they defeated the Maroon Dojo challenge. So we had a little tournament over there where I challenged Eliza to a battle inside of the arena. First up was Trico against her Marill, and we just killed it with a couple of Mega Drains, and her second team member was that nasty Absol, which is not a great matchup for me. However, Espeon surprised me as its Swifts were stronger than I expected, and it was even able to survive a pursuit before claiming victory. After this fight, we all praise each other's battling abilities and go on to the gym together. And as I was taking on all of the gym trainers, my Trico ended up evolving into Grovyle. With him by my side, Rocco and his rock types would certainly be crushed. And yes, I was right. He immediately puts in work and takes down Lunatone with 3 Mega Drains. Espeon then bombards his little Riolu with confusions, and his ace in the hole, Solrock, ended up dying to 3 Mega Drains just like its counterpart. However, we only won this one because he missed a Rock Slide on Grovyle. I'll take it though, because that's 2 gym badges acquired, 8 more to go. Thinking I could take on the world now, I headed over to Destra Path, but a man stopped me saying that I was too weak and needed 5 gym badges if I wanted to pass here. That kind of crushed my soul a bit, but I headed into the opposite direction instead, where we would have to travel through Territ Cave. But we didn't really have a warm welcome, as Squad Zero had captured a local professor and me and Dante have to save him. So me and Dante defeat the grunts, and we find out that this professor is named North and he's actually an astrologist, so he's going to help us identify the meteorite back in Zeph Town. But we wouldn't be meeting up with him there instantly, as first I had to save a girl that was being attacked by a rogue Lunatone, then I had to run around for another hour to find the regional form of Froakie, and this is something I absolutely hate about Pokemon fan games that do this. If you're going to implement your own Fakemon and regional forms, I want to use them, so don't make them incredibly hard to find with a low encounter chance. It just doesn't really make sense to me. But besides that, I do love the design of this Froakie, and once it evolves, it's going to look even better. After this, we make it through the cave and reach Quow Road. This is where I captured the best Pokemon of all time, Mudkip, but also a new regional form of Growlithe that's been turned into a water type. Shortly after, we reach Zeph Town, a beautiful beach area where I did quite a lot of chilling before heading over to the lab. This is where we learned that the meteor could have been put there by Deoxys or Hoopa, but we can immediately rule out Deoxys because he didn't emerge from the meteorite at all. So that only leaves Hoopa. However, there is only speculation that Hoopa exists. Nobody has ever seen it before, but it is definitely possible, as in Legends, Hoopa is always a troublemaker, and with its amazing power, it can even reach between dimensions with its portals. But all of this is currently just speculation, so we hand him the sample so he can research it, which will hopefully clear up some answers for us. He can immediately tell that it was somehow cryogenically frozen, and there's also a very high level of energy radiating from inside this ore. This indicates that Squad Zero probably does have something to do with it, and if we want more answers, we need to go and ask them. So we'll just have to wait until we run into them again. But first, we need to go and challenge the local gym leader who's up somewhere at a lighthouse, and we need to go get him so he can do his job. On our way over there, our Froakie did evolve into Frogadier and is now a dark fire type, and we also run into Eliza, who is taking some pictures of Galarian slowpokes that were surrounding the beach. She also tells me that Gabriel has gone off somewhere north to look for the gym leader, so once we get him out of this lighthouse, we should probably go and tell him. After our conversation, we scale the lighthouse, battle every trainer inside. Some had shiny Pokemon, which was pretty notable, and in the end, we tell Taze, the electric type gym leader, to get back to do his job. We also get Gabriel out of that cave, evolve our Rock'n'Rolla into Boldor, and with this upgrade to our team, I try to enter the gym, but unfortunately Dante is here, boosting his own ego because he just got his gym badge already. He'll be waiting for me in Briseno Town to find out if we have also become stronger, but until then, we need to get this gym badge ourselves. So let's go and challenge Taze. We got incredibly lucky because Espeon was able to confuse his Luxio with Psybeam, all while doing some incredible damage too. This forced him to swap out into Chinchou, and once that was taken out, Luxio was next. This only left him with his final Pokemon, Raichu, but this thing was strong as heck, thunderbolting my Espeon once and taking it out. I then brought in Boldor, who did get hit with a super effective hidden power, but was able to get a Will-O-Wisp off for the chip damage over time. Combine this with the Life Orb damage that the Raichu would take every single turn, and it was only a matter of time before we won this, as a quick attack combined with the overtime damage sealed the deal. Now that we have the Plasma Badge, I headed back into town and saw that one of the hikers here needed a trainer for his expedition, but I actually ended up just skipping this and taking the boat to Briseno Town immediately, because I ain't got no time to help out hikers right now, because it was time for me to challenge big man Dante. He might have a Curlia who started setting up with Calm Minds, but I didn't care. I had Alfonso and Shadow Sneak. Then I just started spamming Mudshot to take out the incoming Bagon and final Pokemon Hitmonlee as well, as they could both not really touch me. After he loses, he's sour again and says we should head to Plato City for the next gym battle. However, he does also have some intel that there's going to be a potential encounter with Squad Zero, so we better head out fast. And luckily we could do that fast because this town had nothing to offer me, so we headed through the desert and into Laka Cave, where we see our first ever combined evolution, Dynamion. And after seeing this, I'm just hoping I'll be getting mine soon too. We also found out that a lot of the shiny Pokemon you know and love have had recolors, like for example this Breloom, so if you're an avid shiny hunter, you might want to check out what else this game has to offer. A little further along in the cave, we battle our good old friend Gabriel again, who wants to see how strong we've become. This ended up being a decently hard double battle against his Grovyle and Gyarados, and while his Manectric is able to take down Helioptile, I do bring in Alfonso after this, and once we combine his Mudshot with Grovyle's Giga Drain, the dog dies fast. Sandslash faints after just one Giga Drain as well, and then it's just Gyarados left, so once we hit it with a Psybeam from Espeon and drain its energy, we win this fight. With that fight being over, we battle one new evolution, Obsidian, and make it out of the cave onto the cliffs, where we see two grunts that have just been summoned to the Plato Museum for a secret mission, which can be good. But before we go and join them to take down their plans, we have a couple of things to do, because we have just reached Plato ourselves and want to do some sightseeing. Starting out at a lab where I got a medicine called Tellurion, which can make a Pokemon evolve without training, so I immediately use it on my Boldor to evolve it into its final form, Gigalith. And this ghostly black hole boulder looks amazing, and you best believe he's going to shred through many more foes. Another neat thing about this place is the fossil revival station, but for now we're going to leave that alone and check out the Astra's Tower Path instead. This is a super useful route route because you can capture as many Eevee as you want, in case you want to try and get every new evolution. But this also brings up a very big problem about this game, actually two major problems in my case. One of them was a proper way to grind up your team. The only thing that I had found so far was a lone Audino on this route that I would just have to rebattle over and over again for experience. Now I might have missed a grinding spot somewhere, but I feel like there should be something to level up your Pokemon more quickly. Another thing was performance issues. I think throughout my entire playthrough, the game crashed about 50 times, which made me lose a ton of progress over and over again. Combine this with a ton of frame rate issues that made it feel like you were playing on a calculator sometimes, and yeah, that almost made me drop the game in its entirety, but I did end up going through it because I liked the main premise. So if you do plan on playing this game yourself, be aware of these issues. They are constant and very annoying, so save your game very often. But with that, my rant session is over. Let's get back into the journey. I ran into both Gabriel and Eliza on this route, who wanted me to go and check out the local Pokemon Tower. Once inside, the three of us had a little bonding experience as we saw the three legendary beasts Raikou, Suicune, and Entei, and with our bond now stronger than ever, we said goodbye and headed back to Plato City to see what Squad Zero were up to at the museum. Apparently, they were here to steal a very old artifact called the Prison Bottle. At least that's what their loud commander Lissa told me. They need it for all of their plans, so we're going to try and stop them. But we're just one kid, so we can't really do much when Lissa distracts me with a Pokemon battle while the grunts take it away. Speaking about this battle, she had a very special team built around the son of her Torkoal's drought, so I shut it down immediately with a Rain Dance from Growlithe. I was about to take it out with Water Pulse, but she swapped out into Houndoom instead. But with the rain up, even her Fire Gem boosted Fire Blast didn't put a dent in my Growlithe, and we could take it out the next turn. Torkoal came back out to set up the sun again, so we used Rain Dance once more, but it had set up a Solar Beam. To nullify it, I swapped into Grovyle and did some decent damage with Giga Drain, then brought out Alfonso once we lost this matchup and killed it with Mud Shot. The last Pokemon was Ivysaur, so we used one more of those shots of mud, then swapped in Espeon and finished the battle with a Psy Beam. After this, they escaped with the Prison Bottle, but at least the museum is now safe. And to continue our battle streak, we're immediately going to take on the fourth gym leader too. Her name is Meredith, and she not only looks like Juan, she also specializes in the same typing, water. And we have the perfect counter for that, Grovyle and his Leaf Blaze, which cut down Marshtomp in seconds, but the next Pokemon, Gorbis, is a lot scarier, as it one-shots my Espeon after I hit it with two Psy Beams. But because it has already taken so much damage and my Frogadier is faster, we can finish it off with a Feint Attack. She then thought her Gastrodon was a force to be reckoned with until it got one-shot by yet another Giga Drain from Grovyle. This led her to her last Pokemon, Milotic, who is not only super bulky but was also holding the leftovers and one-shotted my Grovyle with a single Ice Beam after I hit it with Giga Drain. So I brought out Alfonso and hit it with a Will-O-Wisp to cancel out the leftovers immediately. I then brought in Frogadier, hit a critical hit Feint Attack, and just when I thought I was about to take it out, it used Recover to heal up. All of my team members, except for Growlithe, had been wiped out at this point, and it could just keep healing up. So I took a page out of its own book and started using potions on Growlithe until Milotic eventually ran out and fell to the burn damage. A very cheap victory, but at least I was just using the same strategies as she was. With the Splash Badge acquired, we had 6 more to go, but when I headed outside, I ran into that lady with that strong aura. She noticed my Pokédex, which piqued her interest because she's a trainer herself. Her name is Athena, and she wishes me good luck on our further endeavors and even tells me where to go for our next gym badge. And this destination is going to be Yellowstone City, which is going to be reached quite easily as we can now sail the 7 seas. I even found a very small island that was populated by regional forms of Hippopotas, so I grabbed this water steel type for myself. And I do have to say, this guy looks super cute. I also ended up finding a wrecked ship that was filled with goodies for me to pick up, and Gabriel actually found the reason why this ship crashed in the first place, a regional form of Swellow. This electric flying type wiped his entire team, so I took it on for him instead. I wasn't able to capture it, unfortunately, but she definitely looked like she could whip up a very nice electric storm. After this, I was searching where to go next, and I literally fell into a labyrinth. After completing it, I reached Castle Armira, but I couldn't get in because I didn't have a gym badges yet. So all of that was unfortunately for nothing. I then went to a local cemetery to save a girl from some ghostly activity, which ended up just being a Banette and a Mimikyu hidden in the basement of a cemetery. Once she was safe and sound, I raided somebody's flower garden and captured a very nice shiny Roselia, and once that was added to my collection, I finally found the right direction to go in. How did I know I was on the right track? Well, because I ran into Brendan, and when there's a rival battle, the story normally progresses. He still only had the 3 Hoenn starters combined with a Matang now, so this fight was over quicker than you can think. Once that was done, we say goodbye to Brendan and try to head into Vareed Swamp. Then we get stopped by a very interesting guy whose name is Arwen. He gives me a ticket to Aquafina City where you can do EV grinding, buy very nice items for your Pokemon, and do all kinds of other stuff. But I'm not going to head over there now because I don't really feel like grinding EVs. Instead, we finally reach the swamp and run into Gabriel and Eliza again. They're flirting with each other because it seems like they've taken a romantic interest. So let's third wheel this thing and steal Eliza from Gabriel for a second. And this battle was incredibly hard for one reason or another. I think it took me about 10 attempts before I ended up winning because somehow Azumarill was able to one-shot my Grovyle after I hit a Leaf Blade. Luckily, Espeon can then finish it off with Ice Beam. He can also deal great damage to Ninetales before biting the dust. My Hippo then takes it out with Scald. Because of the Ninetales' drought, however, the sun is now up, so I bring out Greninja and use Blazing Shuriken to take out Absol and Servine. That gave it enough experience to evolve into its final form, Greninja. And I didn't think that frog could become any cooler, but look at this thing. It's awesome. We then split off from our friends again and eventually reach Yellowstone. And that's when we see Alyssa and her grunts who are up to no good as they're off to rob the local bank. But instead of working against the grunts, I help one of them to break into a house and steal a ton of stuff, which was definitely not great for my karma, but hey, I felt daring, so I did it. We also end up introducing Dante to the rest of my friends and tell the local gym leader Erebus to stop patrolling the city and head back to his gym while we go and deal with the bank situation. Once inside, we immediately try to stop the robbery by taking on the grunts and then go to a phone to call the police. They don't really seem to care, however, because they have already cracked the code of the safe, but I luckily managed to distract them long enough for the police to arrive and take them away. And it's not just any policeman that came to put them in cuffs, it's the big man Looker. Once everything's dealt with, he takes me to the bank director's house and thanks me for everything. We also learned that they've been chasing Squad Zero for quite some time now and would love some information if we have any. So we tell him about all the previous encounters we've had with them. After hearing all this, he wants me to work together with him to try and lock them all up. We immediately get rewarded with the HM for strength, but for now we'll have to stay standby until we get further information from Looker. However, the bank director also has a very nice opportunity for me. We have to go and visit his associate Jade, who co-manages the power plant. Inside of this power plant, they research the free samples of the Dualion serum, which you can use to fuse your 2 evolutions. And because we helped save the bank, we can get one for free once we reach her. Speaking of these new evolutions, one guy inside of a museum knew a lot about them. His name was Gaz and explains that Phosphionn was the first ever Dualion to be created by combining the DNA of Jolteon and Umbreon. And from there on, they kept on expanding and experimenting so that eventually they could do this with every evolution. Just like the bank director said, the serums are indeed very expensive, so we should get that free one as fast as we can. Dante was also lurking about somewhere and even gave me the HM for Fly, which we can use once we get our 5th badge. So that's where I headed off next. I had to find my way through dark paths, battling trainers on every single platform I reached, which in the end made my Grovyle evolve into the regional form of Sceptile, a pure poison type that's ready to mug you in the streets of London. With him by my side, I knew there was no way we weren't going to defeat the gym leader Erebus. He of course specializes in dark types and leads off with Luneon, the hybrid of Umbreon and Sylveon. So I used 2 of Sceptile's poison jabs to KO it. Next up was something way more menacing, his Mega Sharpedo, who ended up being faster than my lizard and ate me up with a crunch. So I burned it with Alfonso's Will-O-Wisp, hit a reversal with Growlithe, and with one more quick attack from Espeon, the burn damage finally took the shark down, but we only have 2 team members left, which was more than enough because Greninja's Blazing Shurikens and Feint Attack finished off the fight easily. Now that we're halfway through our badges, we just need 5 more, and we ain't slowing down down now as I moved on to Killamont Path, which led me to the power plant where we could talk to Jade. We explained the entire situation with the bank director to her, and she does agree to give me a serum, but only if we beat her 3 new evolutions. And you already know this is no problem for me, because he starts out with a Radion, an electric fire type that gets killed by Alfonso's mud shots. The electric water type Furion was no problem for Toadster's poison jabs, and the final one, Obsidian, too. After the fight, we get the choice between 3 serums, fire, electric, or water, and because Jolteon is my favorite of the 3, I went with electric, and use it straight away to create Pulsion, a super fast electric psychic type special attacker that's going to be a nightmare for my opposition. Once this was over, I went out to search for interesting things and found a shady guy that would sell me rare candies for the low price of 500 bucks. So I spent all of my life savings and got a ton of them, which would make grinding a lot easier for me. So easy in fact that we got 2 new evolutions, Hippowdon, who just loves to chill in his own liquids, and also the most majestic dog of all time, Arcanine. I then finally found my next destination, Siokosa City. Here they have a ton of nice things like the battle facility, which you can use to grind up your EVs of your Pokemon. It turned out not to be in Aquafina City, so yeah. And of course there's also a gym here you can challenge, but the leader is not around because she's helping out Pelipper's somewhere near the beach. So like a good old trainer, I tell her I want to challenge her, and boom, the gym is back to being open. But wait, we can't enter it yet because Dante wants to show off his power levels again. I mean, at this point he must know we're way too tough for him. And so I showed that off by not backing down, taking down his Shelgon with a couple poison jabs from Sceptile, and the same goes for Hitmonlee. He then uses a revive on his Shelgon to bring it back out, but it goes down the same way as before. When he brought out Gardevoir, I thought it was going to be a sweep, but somehow this lady outsped me and killed me in one shot with Psychic. So I sent out Alfonso, then used Will-O-Wisp to burn it and do chip damage with Shadow Sneak. While we weren't able to come out on top, this was enough for Hippowdon to come in and used Iron Head, which sent it to the graveyard. His last team member was Serperior, so I used Pulsion Psychic combined with Greninja's Blazing Shuriken to humiliate Dante for the 1000th time. Could then take on the gym challenge where we had to get passwords from the trainer we defeated to get to the next level until you eventually reached the leader, which in this case was Helena with her flying type team. I start off by taking out her Skarmory with Scald from Hippowdon. Then we burn her next Pokemon Altaria with Alfonso and hit it another time with Ancient Power before we fall. Pulsion then cleans it up with Psychic and takes out the rest of her team with Thunderbolt. I'm not gonna lie, this was probably the easiest gym battle yet, so I definitely say I deserve this 6th badge. My next destination after this was Kolana Ranch, where I met up with my 2 friends, and we came just in time because some grunts of Squad Zero were chasing around a shiny Zora, so me and Gabriel go after her to save the little guy. We follow them to a nearby bridge where we beat them together in a double battle and scare them away. And in return, this Zora goes back to living in the wild, which is what we were trying to achieve anyway. Once the battle is over, we also learned that Gabriel has an older sister that's incredibly strong, like champion level strong. That's why he went on his Pokemon journey in the first place, to try and overtake her someday. So maybe we will also run into her at some point. But until that day comes, we need to go further on our badge collecting journey, as we head through the Kyokoza Pass with our newly acquired Strength HM and skip over a ton of rocks to reach Aerodon Town, where we meet up with Dante again, who tells me to follow him to the local library because he found some old book that indicates that Hoopa does exist. So we're going to investigate because there should be remains of a ruins somewhere in the Zeph Ocean, and we need to go and uncover its old and forgotten secrets. Once we head out of the library ourselves, we do see Gabriel and Eliza again. They say that Dante might be up to no good because they saw him talking to a shady character. So we should keep that in mind if we tell him something in the future. He might not be trustworthy at all. Maybe he's even working with Squad Zero because he's so eager to find Hoopa. But in any case, we're not going to head out into the ocean yet, as there is also a gym leader in this town. And the gym leaders here love to make you solve puzzles in the dark, because once I got through his labyrinth and saw through his statue disguise, we could finally face a Ares and his fighting type squad, starting out with Electivire, but he's no match for Gigalith and his Earth Power Shadow Sneak combo. We also do decently well against his next Pokemon Scrafty by burning it and hitting 2 more Earth Powers, but in the end Alfonso dies to a crunch. The rest of my team wasn't all that great against Scrafty, but my Hippowdon was able to take it down with a critical hit Scald, which forced out his Mega Medicham. And the only way we were taking this out is if it missed a move, which happened on Arcanine, so I was able to hit Hydro Pump and Crunch to take it down. Final Pokemon, Machamp. And you might have guessed it already, but Pulsion immediately delivers the final blow with Psychic, which made us win the 7th badge. Only 3 more to go from now on. But it's going to be a little while until we challenge the 8th leader, because first we have to join Dante to check out those ruins he was talking about earlier. Our 2 other friends are also here to join us on our expedition, but Eliza wants a battle to see if we're strong enough to take whatever this ruin throws at us on. And so I showed her that she has nothing to worry about, as Pulsion, Hippowdon, and Greninja easily wipe her entire team. After this, we enter the ruins and find out that it's actually a labyrinth with 3 different levels. But unfortunately, nobody has ever been able to complete it because after a certain amount of steps, each floor just shuts down, forcing you to try over and over again. And even for me, this required all of my brain power to get through it. On the first floor, you have to talk to an old inscription which opens up a door somewhere else, and if you don't get there in time, it will close and send you back out. But once you get to that second floor, you have to do the same thing, but with even less steps available to you. This will eventually lead you to a small pond that you can use to dive to the 3rd and final floor. Here you have to defeat 4 different love discs that are swimming around in these big rooms, and once you've done that, the path to the end will finally open. After this, we exit the Zeph labyrinth and find an old altar together with Dante. There's also a tablet nearby, but unfortunately it's in Old Greek and none of us can read it. So just when we think we're stuck here, my bag starts glowing up. Once we take a closer look, we see that it's actually the piece of the meteorite we picked up at the start of our journey. So we decide to put it down on the tablet, and all of a sudden I vanish into thin air while Dante stays behind. And where we end up is even stranger, an old city in the sky that has never been discovered by any land dwellers. Or at least that was until somebody very recently showed up here before me. They had a lot of questions about the legendary Pokemon Hoopa, so it might be the boss of Squad 0. One of the elderly people here tells me that we should visit their elder Zenith if we want more information about that. And since answers is all that we're looking for, we immediately go to their temple. It's very old, messy, and broken down, but there is a path that leads to the top. Once you fall into a hole, you get into a room with a ton of statues. Once you talk to the right one, something happens, but the stairs are still not opening up, as you need to go back to the messy room to press 2 buttons on top of a plant, as well as a secret one behind the painting. This then opens up the staircase to the top, where Zenith is being pressed by a Squad 0 member. We learn that he's here for some kind of artifact, and his name is Carrasco, and he doesn't like me interfering with Squad 0 business, so he's going to try and beat me up. He had a decently strong team, as he started off with a Gliscor who didn't take a Hippowdon Scald all too well. Once Swampert came out, I sent out my own Hoenn starter Sceptile and laid down some Toxic Spice before dying to Earthquake. I needed to take the Swamp King out with my Psychic from Pulsion, but he had a new evolution of his own in the back. Its name was Noctivian, and it was a Grass Dark type, so I immediately swapped in Greninja and killed it with Blazing Shuriken. What came out next though was something I'd never seen before, a regional form of Tyranitar that was now Fire Rock type. It looked super cool and hot, but I had to take it out with Greninja's Feint attacks, and the final Pokemon was Bisharp, who melted down from a single Blazing Shuriken. Carrasco couldn't believe he just lost to a child, so he left the temple without his prized belonging. This gave us the opportunity to talk to Zenith to see what was going on. He goes on to explain that
More than 100 years ago, this island was hidden away into the sky. And a long story short, this was basically all because of Hoopa. Because a long time ago, it was used as a weapon in a Pokemon war. Hoopa was being controlled by a trainer at that time who managed to tame it, but it saw that its trainer was suffering a lot from this war, so he trapped him on this island and locked him into the sky to try and keep him safe. This trainer was Zenith's grandfather, but normally nobody can enter the sanctuary unless you have Hoopa's power, and because me and the guy from Squad Zero have a sample of the meteorite with Hoopa's power in it, we were able to reach this place. He also says that it's actually impossible to summon Hoopa, but that's not why Squad Zero was here. They wanted the 4 azure flutes, which would normally summon Arceus, and because he doesn't think the flute is safe here anymore, he hands it to me. If it stays in my possession, this should never make their plans come to fruition, but because he left, they might have a second plan up their sleeves, so we better go and follow them. After this, we thank Zenith for his help and teleport back to the mainland, where Dante has left a note behind for me. He says that I should go meet with Blake, but before we can do that, we get a call from Eliza, who also tells me to meet her in Zeftown's lab. So I go and do that first. They were really worried about me, thinking that I got lost in the labyrinth and would probably be dead at this point, but we are not. So I explain everything that happened to my 2 friends and Professor North. And North is just happy that his speculations of Hoopa have finally been confirmed. Unfortunately, we have no idea where to go next because Squad Zero's base is unknown to us, but we better find it quick before they start messing with the fabric of time and space. After this, we go and see Professor Blake, who has a very nice new invention for me called the Heal Charge, which can heal up my team anytime I want after I take 8,000 steps, so I don't have to run back to the Pokemon Center all the time. After this, Looker walks in saying that he's looking for Professor Blake because he knows we're working with him. First things first, we lay down everything that happened to the professor, and then Looker tells me that they have a new clue as to where the base might be, as he wants me to meet up with him and one of his associates in Redderil City. That's where the next phase of our plan can commence. After Looker leaves, we find out that Dante has not been keeping up with the professor at all, as he hasn't seen him since the start of our journey. This is very suspicious behavior, but there's nothing we can really do about that right now. So I continue my journey to try and meet up with Looker, but run into a couple of obstacles along the way, like the strong trainer Athena we met earlier, who wipes out a ton of Sandslash with her, wait for it, legendary Zygarde. That's when we finally find out that she isn't actually a regular trainer, but the Pokemon champion. The reason she didn't tell me is because she likes to stay humble and among the people. Unfortunately, she doesn't really have time to talk right now as she has duties to attend to, so after saying adieu, we head into the upcoming desert where we find our next team member, the evolution of Sandslash named Sandridger, a very strong physical attacker that's now a ground steel type. Once he's captured and added to the team, we make our way over to Redderil City, a beautiful place with rustic buildings that somehow still look very new, and at the end, a giant palace filled with rich people. One of them was even buying up a ton of items, like relic crowns, which I found enough from in the labyrinth. So after becoming a millionaire over there, I headed back out, stole a shiny Fomantis from in their backyard, and headed back into the city to take a taxi to the Redderil mine outskirts, because that's where the next gym leader is supposed to be. After searching around for a bit inside, we end up finding her at the end of the mine, and she's trying to fix an air vent, but she needs 2 parts for it, so she sends me out into the mine to look for them, and with my very good eyesight, I end up finding a vent as well as a fan. After taking this back to her, she fixes everything and agrees to take me on at her gym. But I'm not ready for my 8th gym badge yet. I need to meet up with Looker first. Once we arrive at his doorstep, we find out that he arranged a meeting with a former Squad Zero member who was willing to help us out. We learn that they have taken over an entire town and have bordered it up with walls. And on top of this, it's also heavily guarded, so it won't be easy for us to get in. The town, however, is up in the snowy route surrounding Mount Xerus, one of the highest places in the region, which is very hard to reach. But he does have some spare outfits for us, which will make it easier for us to get in. And if they manage to recognize us through these outfits, we will be captured. And that would just mean that they've won. They can just execute their plan because we, their only adversaries, are locked up. But we can't get there without using the HM for Waterfall, which we don't have the permission for until we get the 8th gym badge. So we thank Arthur for his information and head outside to get just that. But there's more bad news brewing, as Eliza tells me that Gabriel is missing, as he won't return any of her calls and he hasn't shown up for his 8th gym battle, which is nothing like him. She thinks he's already been captured by Squad Zero, which means we have to get there as fast as possible. So no more time wasting, we have to save our friend. I complete the gym puzzle in record time, skip over some lava, and battle gym leader Venus. She runs a sun team, but my hedgehog had something to say about
about that, setting up a swords dance on Cradily, and because of that, I was able to one-shot Cradily, Tyranitar, and Arcanine. But Mega Blaziken was different gravy. I knew it was going to outspeed, so I swapped out into Pulsion, who did die to a Flame Burst. After this, I brought out my Hippowdon to set up the rain, and because its fire-type moves were now weakened, I could bring in Alfonso, use Earth Power, and end it off. Her last Pokemon was a Volcarona who wasted its turn setting up Quiver Dance, so I could bring in Heretic again and use Stone Edge to claim my 8th gym badge and headed out of there straight away to try and find my friend. I started my long hike among the mountain but was stopped in various situations by a nice shiny Volcarona and by a flock of Mandibuzzes that were trying to throw me off a bridge for some reason. But luckily these were just wild Pokemon, so I could easily overpower them, and eventually I even reached the cable car. This brought me to Snalaska Village, a place very close to the top of the mountain where we met up with Looker and Eliza. The three of us then start hiking the path that takes us to Squad Zero base, and once we start to get close, Looker tells Eliza to stay behind as a lookout while we go and investigate. Once we arrive, the main gate seems to be closed with a very special mechanism that you need a code for, so we went around the back and used Rock Smash on a crumbling wall, and this allowed us to get in without being seen. After this, me and Looker change into our uniforms and we split up to investigate. First, I tried to enter the local barracks, but unfortunately it was locked, which meant we needed a key. When I couldn't find it, I headed further and saw something very interesting, as my so-called friend, Dante, came out of their base whistling. As he walked past me, he also nearly recognized me, but we did get lucky as he dropped the key to the barracks on the floor. We use it to enter, break open a ton of people's lockers until we find a key card, and with said key card, we can go into their main building. But just when I'm about to step my first foot inside, two grunts come up to me and bring me down to the prison cells because they know we are not actually a grunt. Now that we're locked up here together with Brendan, Dante also shows his face, and now we've got a lot of questions that need answering. Is he actually working together with Squad Zero, or is this all a getup? And this is kind of what went down. First, he worked for Squad Zero. He's technically still working for them, but he was assigned by them to Professor Blake and me so he could keep tabs on us. However, he quickly realized that the more he did, the less he got appreciated here, and when me and him finally started to bond, he realized that he shouldn't be working for Squad Zero anymore, and that's when he switched to being a double agent. Yes, he did know everything in advance, that's why we did go to the labyrinth in the first place, but now he's here to apologize and bust us out. By leaving behind a key we can pick up to open our cell, and telling me that our bag and Pokemon are locked somewhere upstairs. And getting our stuff back was harder than I thought, because we had to navigate the floor very carefully as it was being patrolled by grunts 24/7, and if we would be spotted, we'd be back to square one. So I busted out my best Assassin's Creed stealth skills and retrieved all of my items and Pokemon. Gabriel then comes up to me and says that we need to go to the top of the mountain, as every single Squad Zero member and their bosses are gathering there now for their final plan. We then cut back to their leader Gaz and Carrasco, who are setting everything up, because they've managed to steal my Azure Flute after my imprisonment. They're going to use it to broadcast a signal which would summon Arceus and complete their plan once they capture it. However, when they leave the computer behind, Looker shows up and starts tampering with the signal to try and make it summon any Pokemon other than Arceus. Let's just hope that ends up working. In the meantime, we are making our way through the base, interrogating their employees until we find out how to get out of here. As we make our way to the top ourselves, however, we run into Dante, who wants to make sure we're up to the task by challenging me to another battle. So I show him and his newly added Mega Salamans that he has nothing to worry about, as I win with my super duper tactics. With confidence, we step past him and run into our friends, who are already on their way to the top. I try to chase after them, but we run into Looker along the way, who had something to say. He basically told me that Gaz, the guy we met in the museum earlier, who explained the entire new evolutions phenomenon to me, is their boss, and he's not a stand-up guy, as he's trying to summon Arceus, which can then in turn summon up Hoopa. He's then going to use Hoopa and its portal powers to try and take over the world, which is something we of course can't let happen. So we tell Looker we're going to head to the peak while he calls up his reinforcements at the international police. Eventually we reach the peak and see that it's incredibly harsh weather up here. Because of the cold told, Alyssa actually tries to go back inside to get a jacket, but runs into me instead, which gives up my position unfortunately. And she isn't going to let me ruin their plans, which means we're in for a gauntlet of battles against all of the admins of Squad 0, starting out with her and her Torkoal setting Sun team. But there really wasn't all that much to worry about because I did have something to counter the Sun, and namely my rain setting Hippo down. Yes, she and the other two big boys here might have new mega evolutions for the 3 legendary birds, which turned her measly rubber chicken Moltres into a very nice looking dragon fire type that got cooked on the barbecue just a bit too long. So I just ended up using Hippo down Scalds to deal with it. Once defeated, she called a backup in the form of our companion Carrasco. We did just fight him not too long ago, and his team hadn't changed all that much besides evolving his Bisharp into King Ambit and adding a Mega Articuno to his squad too. And all we ended up doing was paralyzing it with Pulsion, hitting it with a Psychic, then bringing in Hippo down and using an Iron Head, which clears the path for me to jump in and foil their plans once and for all. But we aren't in the clear yet because Gas is their final line of defense. He starts off by guilt-tripping me by saying this is not a nice way to repay him after he gave me all of those serums to make my Espeon evolve into Pulsion, but I don't think that justifies trying to take over the world and become God. So let's take him down before he can try to summon Arceus. He was prepared for a final battle, however, as he throws out his Greninja, who almost takes down my Hedgehog with a Blazing Shuriken, but he wasn't able to hit enough of them so I could counter back with Earthquake to finish it off and bring out his Mega Zapdos, a super strong adversary that gets burned by Alfonso's Will-O-Wisp. This combined with Shadow Sneak and Hail damage eventually whittled it down so that it would fall together with Alfonso. He then brought out my Milotic, so I went into my own water type and hit it with a Thunder, but it outsmarted me by going for Mirror Coat, which doubled the damage that I did and finished me off. I had an electric type in the bag though, as Pulsion hit 2 more Thunderbolts to electrocute the Sea Snake. After this, I sent out Greninja to execute his very own Sceptile, as well as the Digging Mole Excadrill with Blazing Shurikens. He only had 1 more Pokemon left, and this was a fusion of Glaceon and Flareon, so I just had to send out my Arcanine, hit 2 Hydro Pumps, and the win was mine. Gaz, just like his admins, can't believe he just lost and blames it on the snow and his Pokemon being distracted by it. Whatever it was, it doesn't matter because his team has been wiped out, but as with every evil plot, we were just not in time and the evil machine was ready to power up to send out its signal. He orders his grunts to start it up and then a portal opens up, but it's not Arceus that walks out. It's the legendary being of time, Dialga, in its primal form. I guess Looker's plan by messing up the signal ended up working. It doesn't matter to him, however, he still wants to control this legendary being, but it wipes out his team in a matter of seconds. After this, he starts panicking and asks me for our help. Because we don't want this world to paralyze just like it did in Mystery Dungeon, we end up taking on Primal Dialga and wipe it out with 2 Swords Dance boosted Earthquakes by Heretic. This causes Dialga to flee back into its portal, and so we have saved the world. After that is over, Gaz is in disbelief as Looker shows up with the entire International Police Corps who round up Squad 0. He himself, however, uses a smokescreen to flee the scene as he sprints past all of us. So we try to chase after him, but unfortunately he gets away, never to be seen again. And while the International Police is going to keep searching for him, our job here is luckily done. But we have a couple more things to do before we can achieve our dream of becoming Pokemon Champion. First, I go over to Professor Blake to explain to him that all of his research went into funding Squad 0's purposes. And while he does apologize for introducing me to Dante, he is just glad that everything ended up being sorted out. And as my reward for helping him and the entire region out, he gives me 100,000 Pokédollars, making us even richer than we were before. He also wishes me luck on my Pokemon League journey, and after we say our goodbyes and head outside, we do end up running into Blake again, who's here to apologize to the professor. He's also here to thank me for putting him on the right path, however, but our journey together isn't over yet. He wants to continue his quest to the top as a trainer, so I bet we'll definitely fight him one more time before we reach the Elite Four. Now, first things first, we need to get 2 more gym badges, the 9th and 10th, which is definitely a shame to me. I wish they were implemented into the story more and not just like finish the story, go and take on these 2 gyms, and then go to the Pokemon League. We have come so far already, it's no time to stop now. So I headed to Armira Castle, where we faced leader Jasmine and her dragon types. So I started off with Arcanine against her High Dragon and used Ice Fang and Reversal to take it out. I also hit an Extreme Speed on Kingdra to do some extra damage so that I could bring in Pulsion to take on her own evolution Sylveon. I then used Heretic to set up a Swords Dance on the incoming Snorlax and take it out with a critical hit Earthquake, but Kingdra came back out and used Hydro Pump to take me down. After this, I used a Psychic from Pulsion combined with a Dark Pulse from Greninja to take down Garchomp, and her last team member Mega Charizard X couldn't stand up to Dark Pulses from the superior Fire type. Now that we had the Draco badge, we only had one more to acquire, and this one was in Aquafina City. This one was special because we had to fill up an entire tank with toxins from trees, and this opened up a secret path to the leader. Her name was Annalisa, and she was a little edgy and loved bug and poison types. And all you need is an ancient power boost or 2 on your Gigalith once you take out the Galvantula she sends out first, because with those special attack boosts, the rest of her team becomes a piece of cake as we take down Weezing, Magnezone, Sceptile, and Tentacruel, but her Mega Gengar was a bit too strong and fast, so that made Alfonso bite the dust. Not to worry though, it doesn't have the Levitate ability anymore, so I send out Heretic and use an Earthquake to claim the Snakeskin badge and give us access to Victory Road. The path to Victory Road wasn't easy, however, because we had to go to the bottom of the seas, hike up dangerous mountain paths, and face many trainers before we finally reached it ourselves. Inside, I captured myself a Pupitar because I wanted a piece of that regional Tyranitar for myself. I also saw what the Mega Regional Sceptile would look like if I could find the Megastone myself, which I never ended up doing. And speaking of Sceptile, my Hoenn rival Brendan also wanted one final battle before we could reach the Elite Four and Champion. He might have built one of the best Hoenn teams you can ever get, but once you come into a region that has different Pokemon, I showed him that you need to broaden your horizons and not just use Pokemon from your home country. And once him and his Mega Metagross got fully defeated, he realized he wasn't ready for the league yet and let me move on. And as I ran over that hill, I could see the Pokemon League at the horizon, but just before I could enter, I got stopped by my good old friend, Dante, who was going to show me what I would be up against right here. And while I could get into the nitty-gritty of things, all you really have to know is that he finally got the strength to overpower me. He beat me, I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't prepared, and while I felt kind of sad for losing, I also respected that my friend had finally overtaken me, because this dream of becoming the strongest probably means more to him than it does to me. I've already served my purpose, but even after all of this, he still doesn't think he can take on the league and gives me the privilege of trying first. But I better be ready when I become champion, because that's when he'll be coming back. So I gathered all my best Pokemon by evolving Pupitar into Tyranitar and started crafting up strategies. And once I was fully prepared, I was ready to take on the first member, Gordon. And as you can see from his menacing posture, this guy is not going to be easy to take down, but his first Pokemon Terrakion is, as we one-shot it with Psychic. He doesn't back down and immediately brings out his Mega Tyranitar, which is his ace, but we have the perfect counter in Gigalith because it doesn't have a Dark-type move. I just use 2 Earth powers and it's already down. For Machamp, I bring out Pulsion again and use Psychic once more, but I wasn't expecting this guy to bring out a Heatran next. Not that that's any problem for JND, who can just use Skull with the Rain Up to kill it as well as the incoming King Ambit, but his team doesn't stop there because the cream of the crop, a shiny Flygon which looks beautiful, is his final team member. The only thing I had to do was bring out Alfonso with his Rocky helmet, and once I hit a Shadow Ball, he came in range to hurt himself with a Dragon Claw, and that finished off the fight. On to the second member, whose name is Theodore, and he loves to speak French because he's from the Kalos region. But don't underestimate him because he and his Ice Cold team are ready to freeze me over. But I do have a little bit of a counter here as I start off with my Tyranitar and its Drought ability that sets up the sun. Because of that, I can take out Frostlass, but because of his Destiny Bond, I do go down in the same turn. He doesn't slow down after this, however, as he Mega evolves his Lapras into this custom new Mega that looks beautiful, but the main problem is its Snow Warning ability that sets up the hail. But despite being a Mega, it still can't survive 2 Thunderbolts from my Pulsion, which forces him to bring out Shaman Skyform. This Flying Deer has Earth Power, which sends my Pulsion to the grave and cripples my Greninja down to 19 HP, but with a Blazing Shuriken, we kill it and force out Cobalion. That's when I bring out Alfonso, who seems to be having everything under control, as it takes takes down the deer with earth powers. The same goes for his ice-type Sandridger. The final opponent, Shiny Staraptor, gets knocked out of the air by ancient powers. And that means 2 more battles to go before we can face the champion. And this next one was a lover of cute Pokemon as well as fairy types named Angela. All I'm hoping is that she doesn't start a relationship with a beet farmer. I once again started off with my Tyranitar, who wasn't a great matchup for her first Pokemon, the Sylveon Vaporeon fusion. So I went into my own evolution and electrocuted it with Thunderbolts from Pulsion. Scolipede came out next, so I went into Alfonso to try and get the boost with Ancient Power, but after taking it out, I didn't get a single one. And if you thought the last 2 had big gun aces up their sleeve, this girl has the legendary Pokemon Xerneas, who mows down Gigalith and Greninja like they don't even exist. But I'm in luck because Sceptile can outspeed, hit a gunk shot, and take it out from this range. Alakazam hits the field next, so I bring out Hippowdon and start scalding away until it falls. Virizion then comes out and uses its Leaf Blade to slash me into little pieces. But don't count me and my team out yet. I bring out Tyranitar, use Lava Plume, and Scorch Virizion. This leaves her with just 1 Pokemon, but this one was the strongest of them all. A regional form of Garchomp that had transitioned into a fairy dragon type, and while it might look cute, once it mega evolves, it tears me apart with its blades. I still have Pulsion in the back, and I'm able to get a Thunder Wave off to paralyze it. Once Pulsion then gets taken out, I bring out my final Pokemon Greninja, hit a gunk shot, and win the battle between the 2 best regional forms here. So let's see what this final member, Patricia, has in store for me. Yes, she might start off with a Rose Raid, but once I swap into my Greninja and use a Blazing Shuriken, that's already burned up. You may think her Tentacool can do a better job, and while it was able to stall out my Hippowdon for a couple of turns, in the end the Lightning of Thunder was too much for her. What is it with these Kalos legendaries, because this girl sends out Yveltal next, a Pokemon that can literally draw energy out of every life it is surrounded by, but yet it still falls asleep once it sees a Hippo yawning. Once it is asleep, it's an easy target for Pulsion's Thunderbolt. Her Chandelier got knocked out of the ceiling after a single Dark Pulse from Greninja. Yveltal wasn't her only legendary though, as she also had the Pokemon Devil Giratina by her side. This time I yet again had to utilize Dark Pulse from my Greninja, but without a flinch I knew I wasn't going to win this matchup. So instead I had to whittle it down with another Shadow Ball from Gigalith and a Psychic from Pulsion. But she's not down for the count yet. She still has a Mega on her field, Sableye. But she does something very stupid and uses Toxic to poison my Pulsion, but because of my Synchronize ability, it also poisons the opponent. So while her own poison was whittling her down, I combined it with Pulsion's Thunderbolts to ultimately win this fight too, so we could move on to the champion battle. And the one that I was so excited for, because we know this girl. And while she does thank me for saving the region, I don't understand why she didn't do it herself. It seems like most Pokemon champions just aren't that great at their job of protecting the region and would just like to place that task on 12-year-olds. And so for all the 12-year-olds out there, I'm going to get revenge right now. And yes, she might start off with this regional form of Garchomp, but this one isn't Mega Evolved, so it can't one-shot my Sceptile with Earthquake. Because of this, I can once again counterback with Gunshot and take it down. I then bring out Tyranitar and set up the Sun, which is perfect because she brings out her newly Mega Evolved Milotic. And I've seen many Mega Evolutions of Milotic in my day, but this one might be my favorite, as it keeps its majestic look but also adds that fairy-type cuteness to it. But we are not going to be glazing this snake for long, as 2 Thunderbolts from Pulsion finish the job. Up next is Volcarona, so I use Thunder Wave to paralyze it so that my Tyranitar can outspeed the turn after and kill with Power Gem. But this is where the winds shift in her favor, because the complete form of Zygarde is an absolute beast that basically can't be taken down, because it easily one-shots Tyranitar. So I bring out the only thing that could even withstand an attack from it, Gigalith, and use Will-O-Wisp to burn it. In this process, it's able to paralyze me with Glare and set up Curls to boost its attack. I then start spamming Shadow Balls to lower its special defense and get it down to under half HP, but once it reaches that point, it uses Rest to heal up fully and get rid of the burn. Yeah, this guy really is unkillable. I repeat this process 4 times and lower its special defense so much that it's forced to swap out into Cresselia, but do keep in mind, it's still alive. I then try to burn Cresselia, but I miss 2 times in a row because I get paralyzed, and I know if Gigalith dies, this entire fight is over, so I use a full restore to put it back to full HP. I then start spamming Ancient Powers and Shadow Balls until it eventually dies, all while healing myself up, and that's when Zygarde hits hits the field again, but this time in its regular 50% form. I start hitting it with Shadow Balls and Earth Powers until I fully ran out of PP. So I bring out Hippowdon instead and try to burn it with a Scald, but that doesn't end up happening and I just die to 1,000 arrows. So I send out my Gigalith again and I did still have 3 Earth Powers left, and this was enough to finally bring down this giant green snake. And while you might think it's over now, it absolutely isn't, because she still has a shiny red Gyarados as her final team member. And sadly enough for me, Gigalith had nothing left to hit this with. So the only thing I could still do at this point was revive my Pulsion and use a Thunderbolt to cheese my way out of the champion battle. But let's be honest, I don't think I would have ever been able to beat them without overleveling or using items, because she really was the strongest that's around. The professor then comes barging in and tries to give me tips on how to beat her, but at that point he realizes that it's already happened. We all start laughing together, and with this final moment of joy, we enter the Hall of Fame room to get crowned as champion of the Armira region. And that's how I managed to beat Pokemon Daybreak. And I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't play this game again. Performance issues alone almost made me stop, but in the end, I also didn't think this story was all that amazing. With the evil team not really having an end goal, from wanting to summon Hoopa to it not being able to be summoned, so they have to get Arceus. I don't know. It just felt like there was a lot lacking in that department. Personally, I'd give Pokemon Daybreak like a 4 out of 10. I do really like the region and the map they've made, and the Fakemon also definitely help, but it's really being held back by the performance issues and poor story writing. But with that being said, I do hope that you enjoyed my journey throughout Pokemon Daybreak, and I'll see you guys again next week with an entire new story.